Is TikTok over? Like over? TikTok has 9 months to sell, or else it's not allowed in the United States.
But why do they have to sell?
Well, one of the reasons is privacy concerns. And today, we actually have Emily Baker White, a tech reporter for Forbes, who has a very interesting relationship with ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hello, Emily.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Thank you so much. So we'll just jump into it. So Emily, how do you feel? Like, what was your experience with ByteDance?
So I've been reporting on TikTok and ByteDance for several years now, and I ended up reporting a big leak in 2022 that showed that lots of people in China had access to US user data. So things like our email addresses, our private messages, our private videos, et cetera, were accessible in China. And that mattered because in China, there isn't due process, and the government can just come and ask any employee to turn over all the data, and they have to do it, right? There's no way that they can meaningfully challenge that. And so the US government was concerned that the Chinese government could be using TikTok to capture data about us. I wrote this big story. The company got really anxious about it. And a number of employees, some of whom were in China, tried to figure out who had leaked the information to me. And in doing that, they used the TikTok app to surveil me to try to see where I was physically, and then to try to compare that information with information about where TikTok and ByteDance employees were physically. And what they were trying to do is figure out, am I in the same coffee shop at the same time as a ByteDance employee or a TikTok employee? Are we in the same public park? Are we in the same library, right? Because that might be an indication that those people were talking to me.
Wow.
And so that caused a huge problem for the company when it came out. I heard about it from a source and was able to corroborate it and publish it. And the company later acknowledged that, yeah, this happened. They fired the people involved, but it was a really bad look because they had been surveilling me in part from China while they were assuring everyone that there was no risk that their data was accessible in China. And so how did I feel when the bill went into effect? I felt really nervous and anxious, generally speaking, because we're in uncharted territory here. The US has never banned an app before, and TikTok and ByteDance have said they're going to challenge the constitutionality of the bill that would require ByteDance to sell, or that could result in a ban of TikTok. And so we're about to be in uncharted legal territory. This is going to be a big case and an unpredictable case. And it's going to be a really important one to watch.
Most definitely. So would you say this is what the US is afraid of? Like, do you think that's why they're banning it, or?
It's definitely one of the things they're afraid of. So there are two major concerns that the US government has expressed about TikTok. One of them is data harvesting. And frankly, they're probably not that worried about like my general location information. That's not that sensitive. But the general location information of people who are deployed, right? They're worried about that. You could also think about like Chinese dissidents, people who have stood up to this government before, could be of sort of additional interest to the government, and thus could be an additional risk here. The Chinese government also, they collect a lot of data, generally speaking. And so it's possible that they and other governments are sort of hoovering up all of this data to think what might they want to do with it someday. And that was expressed as a risk too. But the sort of really important other big bucket here is the idea that the Chinese government could control what we see on TikTok. And I know that that's a concern for a lot of lawmakers too. And there was some research that was put out suggesting the messages on TikTok skewed much more pro-Palestine than the messages on other platforms. And some people use that to say, oh, that means that the Chinese government is interfering in what's on TikTok. I'm not sure that's what that means. There are a lot of young people on TikTok who have strong feelings about Israel and Palestine, and I think it may just be those young people expressing their opinions, and there are different sort of constituencies on every app, right? So some lawmakers were really using that as a sign. I'm not sure I would use that as a sign personally, but the concern still exists that if there are people in China who are working for this company, just doing their jobs, you know, not doing anything nefarious, the government could show up at their door one day and say, yeah, you're going to have to make this tweak to the algorithm. And if that happened, we wouldn't necessarily know about it.
Yeah.
So as we know, TikTok has 9 months to sell. But why do you think they're not going down without a fight? It sounds like. Why do you think they won't settle?
Like ByteDance.
ByteDance, TikTok, yeah.
So there are a couple reasons. One reason is that the Chinese government actually gets a say in whether ByteDance is allowed to sell. So when Trump tried to ban TikTok several years back, he also was trying to force a sale of the app. And when that happened, there were meaningful sale negotiations. And at the last minute, the Chinese government changed their export rules and said that recommendations algorithms are a sensitive type of asset and that you need to get a license before you can sell them. And the sort of writing on the wall was, yeah, and we're not going to give you a license. So it's possible that ByteDance could get such a license. It does not seem likely. The Chinese government has said that it fully opposes ByteDance divesting of this asset. And ByteDance itself has said it doesn't want to sell. It wants to go to court. It says this law is unconstitutional. We shouldn't be forced to sell. And think about if Google or Meta were forced to sell their core tech by a government.
Oh, yeah.
They might go to the government and say, I don't think so, too. So I think we've got two major things going on here. We've got a company that doesn't want to sell its core tech, and I sort of can't blame them. And then we've also got the fact that the Chinese government could forcibly stop them.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has all been wild. I mean, I have TikTok on my phone. Do you still have TikTok on your phone?
I do not have TikTok on my personal phone anymore. I do have a phone through which I can access TikTok.
Got it.
Okay, so you're still on the app somehow, but not through your personal device.
That's smart.
No, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Emily. We really appreciate you being on the show and telling us, exactly what happened or what's going on with TikTok. And yeah, I mean,
where can people find you and keep up with all this tech news and updates?
I'm on most of the social platforms. I'm reluctantly still on the app that was formerly known as Twitter, but I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm on Threads. I'm technically on Mastodon. You can find my author page on Forbes. That lists my email address. I'm pretty easy to find. Hey, if you know interesting things about TikTok or ByteDance, I want to hear from you. So definitely, if you Google me, you can get ways to contact me. And please do. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, we'll
Take
be
care.
in touch.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Emily.